Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Welcome back to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Beth Hand. My guest today is attorney and family legacy planning expert, Matrona Jessica Ward. Matrona is the founder of the family legacy planning firm, which takes a very different approach to typical estate planning. Matrona, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dive right into my many questions that I have for you, I was hoping you could take just a couple of minutes and tell our listeners a little bit about your background, what made you decide to become an attorney, and then tell us what sparked your interest in the estate planning world in particular.
Sure. Well, I decided to become an attorney pretty much in my senior year of college. I was looking at the opportunities that were available to a political studies degree graduate, and I was seeing that I wanted something more. So I figured more school was the answer because I had always been good at school. And so I applied a few places, and thankfully I got into the place that I wanted to go to the most, which was Pepperdine. And over at Pepperdine, I had amazing opportunities to study under thought leaders in a lot of areas of interest. My main area at the time was constitutional law as a political studies undergrad, but I also got a taste of alternative dispute resolution, and I did a semester abroad too. So I had a really well-rounded education there. And then I graduated right when the market dropped in 2008. And all of a sudden, a promising future was not looking so promising. As I looked around, it was important to me to stay in Los Angeles at the time, and the firms that were hiring in the kind of think tank and public interest space were very few at that point. So I just started sending out resumes to small and medium-sized firms, and I ended up at a personal injury firm, which was definitely not my passion, but I was able to learn a lot. I loved the study of the human anatomy, and I loved the fact that the work that we did had real-life impact on clients. But I did see that the way things were done there were not the way that I would have done them if I had started my own firm. The way that they were serving clients really didn't meet the clients where they were at and meet their needs. It was more about meeting the needs of the firm. So for instance, the way that it was a boutique firm that had personal injury and some other matters as well. So the way that the business matters were billed out left business owners really struggling to keep us up to date because they were worried about getting a bill in the mail for every phone call. With the personal injury cases, sometimes we weren't taking the time to get to know the client and their wants and desires for the case. We were just going after the maximum settlement that we could get. And we had a few cases that really stuck with me. One who got injured at her religious community hall and didn't really want to have to sue her religious community, but was put in a position where that was the only way she could get the damages taken care of. And so those stuck with me as instances of ways we could have served the client better. And I determined that if I ever had the opportunity to do things differently, that I would. So when I was at that firm for a few years and I just got really burnt out on it, and I decided to go back to my area of undergrad in political studies. I loved it. It wasn't attorney work at all, but I volunteered for a few campaigns, moved back to my hometown, Marietta, and got hired on at a state senator's office. So I got to spend my days teaching interns and helping constituents with their real world problems. And I really liked that kind of boots on the ground aspect of it, and also helping the young people figure out the careers that they wanted for themselves. And a lot of the people who wanted to go to law school, let's think this through.
Let's be really sure.
Right. Some I said, yeah, you should go. Some I said, well, is it just because your dad went? Then I thankfully had the blessing of my twins and my little guy, and I took some time at home to be a stay-at-home mom, which was absolutely the greatest joy. And when I was looking at getting back into work, I said to myself, what am I going to do? I have this passion for helping people find their own path and create their own destiny. And yet I need this to be compatible with family life. I need to not travel too much. I need to be home in the evening to be with my children. So what am I going to do? And as I was thinking through that, I came across the possibility of doing estate planning actually on the advice of my priest. He said, why don't you look into this? And I did, thinking, oh yeah, that was a fun class in school. Haven't really done much with it since. And as I looked into it, I saw that it was a perfect way to balance my interests of helping people to be able to create their own path and their own destiny away from necessarily what the state would have for them as the default, which was the basis of my interest in constitutional law. And so being able to go into a whole different area and help people do the same thing was great. And then the compatibility with family life was so essential. And as I got into it, I took a couple of years to just study while the babies were little and just learn and learn and learn and soak up as much as I could. And so when it was time to launch, I really felt ready, that I knew what I was doing and that I knew how to help people to do this. And of course, my own plan came first, and then some friends and family, and then we were off to the races. So I've been doing estate planning for 4 years now, and I just love the ability to help people think through something that they've been putting off that might be scary for them, because it's hard to think about our own mortality, and it's hard to think about what's going to happen to our loved ones when we're gone. And to be able to just guide them through that in a way that takes all of the technicality pain out of it, but still keeps it infused with meaning in a way that's bringing them purpose to the rest of their life and helping them direct how they want that to go. That's just so beautiful for me. And I love doing it.
Absolutely. That is a great background story. And I did not realize until today just how similar kind of our background, our origin stories were. So we'll talk more about that later. But one thing I love about your firm is that it isn't just a basic estate plan. A lot of attorneys can give you a basic estate plan. You really seem to look at the full picture of what a person is needing, what a family is needing. Tell me about your ideal client and who are you best suited to serve with the work that you do?
Yeah, I've got 3 types of clients that I really love to serve. One is families who have loved ones with special needs, and that's close to my heart. My mom's worked with the special needs community for a long time, and I found out that people with special needs, if they receive an inheritance, they can lose benefits that they've come to rely on and essentially have to just use their inheritance to replace the benefits that they were already getting. And I know that's not really what people had in mind when they're wanting to leave something to a person with special needs. So we have ways of dealing with that so it doesn't happen, and helping them to be able to thrive and live the best life possible for them with the full benefit of their state benefits and of the inheritance that's left for them. And then we also are able to help with conservatorships as needed for people who have special needs. So that's one prong of who we help. We also help parents who have young kids at home, whether they're millennials or Gen X, and they haven't really been thinking about their estate planning. But as soon as I talk to them about what would happen to their kids, the light bulb comes on and they think, oh, I need to get this done. This is something that's really important. Because a lot of them want to direct how their kids would receive funds or what their kids would do with certain funds, and make sure that their values are being followed as the kids grow up, whether they're able to be with them or not. And then the third prong of the people who I love to serve are legacy-minded grandparents who really have it in mind that they want more than just asset preservation, but they want to think about the whole person and who they are and what they're leaving behind in terms of their spiritual wealth of wisdom, their life stories, and the values and care that they want to leave behind. So I love serving those folks as well.
That's great. Those are 3 really incredible groups. And again, just so much that we have in common when it comes to that. Tell us a little bit about, as these clients are coming in, what is your process like? Is it 5 meetings? Is it 2 meetings? What type of things do you discuss? How do you make sure that you're crafting the best possible plan for these clients that are coming in to see you?
Yeah, we've got a 3 meeting process, and it all starts with the life and legacy planning session. And that session is a hit the ground running meeting where the client comes already having filled in some intake pretty extensively. And so we're able to just dig in on them. I'm able to ask them all about their family, their wishes, their desires, what they want for their assets, and to really use their family dynamics to craft the plan that's best going to work for them. Part of the reason that I do that is actually when I was a little girl, my grandparents died within a month of each other unexpectedly. And when my mom was the administrator of that estate, they did have a plan, but the plan wasn't really tailored in such a way that prevented conflict. Essentially, my mom's dad had left his older children from another mother out of his plan because they had already received a large inheritance from them. And so they were adamant that they had been treated unfairly under this plan, and they were threatening legal action. And it really caused a rift in our family. I didn't get to play with my cousins anymore. And I didn't know all about the legal part, of course, as a little girl, but I knew that because of the estate, I couldn't play with some of my favorite cousins because they weren't able to come over anymore. So that really was impactful on me. And when I got into estate planning, I wanted to make sure that I really took the time, not just to be an order taker, but to get to know the families and craft a plan that would help them meet their objectives. So that's what we do at the Life and Legacy Planning session. And then we've got lots of interaction in between that part and the next meeting, which is going to be the signing meeting, where we go over the drafts and have the notary there. We call it a ceremony. People smile at that because they're like, do I have to dress up? But it is a really big day for them because that is the day that they have a plan. And then the third part of the process is after we keep those documents and digitize them for the client, package them up in a beautiful binder and everything for them, we have them back for a binder delivery meeting. We go over again everything that's in there and what they need to do from here. And then we do one more extra step, which is the Priceless Conversations interview. And that's where we turn the camera on and actually ask questions about people's lives, their upbringing, their siblings, everything that they would want their loved ones to remember about them. Because it struck me that I might know the names of my great-great-grandparents, but I don't know very much else about them at all. I maybe would know the occupation of a couple of them, but how amazing will it be in a couple of generations to actually be able to watch and hear their stories, hear what it was like in their hometown when they grew up, and hear, the values that they wanted to make sure they passed along, why they chose the career they chose. And I just think that that's a really nice end cap to our whole process. So we do that and we put it straight onto the flash drive in the binder so that the loved ones will find the interview as they're opening it up and scanning for the documents.
Oh, I love that. And if I've seen anything throughout the years in estate planning, that's it, right? People don't just want documents. They really want, number one, that peace of mind is what they're looking for that those documents bring. But number two, having those priceless conversations. How many times do we wish we could have gone back and asked our grandparents or even our parents some of these questions, and then they're gone and all of that information is lost? So I absolutely love the priceless conversation interview, and that's how you wrap up the process. And what a gift to all of these families that upon a sad passing of a loved one, not only receive a great plan that works like the loved one intended, but also what a special and incredible gift to have all of those priceless conversations captured on video. We're really in such a new era for that. We didn't have that opportunity. Our grandparents didn't have that technology, but we do. And so I love that you are utilizing that with all of your clients and really making that a cornerstone part of your process. And really, you must get to know your clients so well through those interviews. Of course, we know clients well through the estate planning process anyway, but talk about the impact of having those priceless conversations with your clients. What is that like for you?
Oh, it's my favorite part by far. I tend to just be disposed to like people anyway, and as I get to know them, I like them more and more. But then when we are going through the priceless conversations and I hear their heart, I hear what really matters most to them, it's just so beautiful. Nobody sits there and says, I won because I made the most money. Nobody ever sits there and says, my car is what mattered most to me. They're talking about their loved ones. They're talking about sometimes their faith. They're talking about the people that have impacted them in their life, sometimes their mentors or teachers that have impacted them. And it's just a beautiful thing. There's usually tears. We have Kleenex in the conference room now because it's just such a meaningful and heartfelt process. I love getting to know the clients like that. And when I see them later, there's always fond memories.
Absolutely. What a deep relationship you get to build with your clients. I think that's incredible. You mentioned just now faith, and that allows them to capture that piece as part of their estate plan as well. How has your faith impacted the work that you do?
Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning that it was actually my priest who suggested that I get into estate planning, and I'm an Orthodox Christian. And so when I'm thinking about estate planning, the thing that really sticks out to me is that we have a certain boldness about death, that it's not something that we are afraid of, but it's something that we know has already been conquered. So in our faith, in our tradition, we are not so shy to look into what's going to happen when we're gone. We're not so shy to say the word death. And I love serving people from my faith background because we understand together what we're talking about. And people of any faith, I think, tend to have a little bit more of a depth of their thought process about their own life, their own mortality, and what that is going to mean to them. So being aware and mindful of that process, I just think that it's really important to capture a client's values with that.
I agree completely. And one thing that is so unique that I've seen on our end of estate planning is people that have a faith background, both attorneys and then the clients that come in as well. You can do that end of life planning, which everyone can agree nobody really loves to talk about what happens if I don't come home to my kids or what happens when I die. Those are not fun topics. But when people are coming in, when clients are coming in from a faith background, there's that level of hope there as well that I feel like as attorneys we can really foster. And so I love that you are able to really do that through the work that you do as an estate planning attorney and really helping people plan out their legacies. Before we run out of time and wrap up here in just a minute, I did want to mention to all of our listeners that on your website, familylegacyplanningfirm.com, you actually have a great set of really good webinars and vlogs. And so for those that are listening, I didn't even mention this to Matrona before the thing, but she has some really great things on do you need a will or trust, about incapacity, the 5 pitfalls of DIY plans, and then a really great coming soon is a really great webinar she's going to be doing on a Christian ending, which is what we just touched on a moment ago. So for everyone who's listening, if you want to know more about some of the things that she is teaching about and talking about, be sure to visit her website, familylegacyplanningfirm.com. We'll also link that for you in the show notes as well. Matrona, is there anything I didn't ask you about that you'd like our listeners to know about?
Yeah, I'd love to add that I recently launched orthodoxestateplanning.com, which is full of resources specifically for Orthodox Christians and thinking about their own estate planning.
Very cool. Okay, we will link that for you guys in the show notes as well. So thank you for all of our listeners for joining us. Again, I am your host, Katie Beth Hand, and my guest today was attorney Matrona Jessica Ward. For more information on Matrona and all of the work that she does, you can visit familylegacyplanningfirm.com, and on the site, be sure to check out those cool webinars and vlogs from Matrona explaining all of the important pieces of the family legacy planning process. Matrona, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Katie Beth.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit pinnaclelegacylaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.